This is part 2 of my meditation for Holy Thursday. Unfortunately, I ran out of storage space on my iPad, so I had to delete some images so that I can continue here. And I'm looking at and meditating upon an image from the 2nd century that's found in the catacombs, a basket with the loaves in it, and a fish underneath it, referencing Christ's miracle of the multiplication of the loaves and the fish. And I pointed out that the basket contains a chalice with wine in it, and so that renders this a kind of Eucharistic image. And the presence of the fish tells us, I think, that the bread and the wine in the action of the Mass become Christ himself for us. Christ himself kind of laid out on the altar as the kind of fish is kind of laid out there beneath the image. Now, I was beginning to say that this meditation might prove painful for some of you in this time of COVID-19 crisis, where you have a kind of a fast from the Mass and a fast from the Eucharist imposed upon you. And I think we need various kind of strategies to deal with this. And one strategy that I would like to propose is that you watch the Mass, on the televised Mass, the broadcast Mass, whether it's live stream or broadcast later on, that you watch that Mass with great devotion. And I say this because some people are kind of a bit leery of a broadcast Mass, and you know, it is a kind of strange kind of topic that we all need to kind of think about a little bit. But I think one of the ways you can think about it is in this way, in terms of the kind of theology and significance of images for us as Christians and as Catholics. That if you think about your favorite saint, for example, well, Saint Philip Neri, the ideal situation would be to be able to be in the very presence of that saint, to talk with him, to recount with him the story of his life, his deeds, have that saint explain to you the kind of ways of holiness that he prescribes for us. That would be the ideal situation. But that situation is eschatological. It will happen not in this life, but in the next life when we are all reunited in heaven. So in this life, what we have are the kind of writings of the saints that we can study. We also have the kind of writings about the saints, the various attempts to kind of write and document their lives that we can study, and so inform ourselves and draw closer to the spirit of that saint. But we also have images of the saints. We have a great, in the Catholic Church, we have a kind of rich repertoire of images of the saints. And although the best situation would be to converse with that saint face to face, that's not possible. So in lieu of that, we have the image of the saint, and we can place the image of the saint before us, and we can relate to that image as we would to the saint himself. So it's kind of the truth of the Catholic understanding of images, that the veneration we pay to the images of the saints pass to the saint himself. Or in a slightly different formulation, that the veneration we pay to the image is in fact paid to the saint himself. So we can, to draw close to that saint, then we can venerate his or her image. And what does it mean to venerate an image? Well, venerating an image is a very kind of material and a concrete act. So we gaze at an image, we look at it with our eyes, and we look at it with our eyes in order to kind of inform ourselves, maybe what the saint looked like, if it's kind of recent portrait, or to see how the countenance of the saint is portrayed, or to see the various kind of accoutrements that accompany the saint, to learn about his or her kind of ways and kind of deeds and miracles or whatever. So we gaze upon an image with loving and prayerful devotion. But our veneration of images is also much more concrete than that. That sometimes people kind of kiss an image, or you can burn a votive candle before an image, or you can carry an image in kind of procession. You can decorate that image with kind of flowers. You can burn incense before us. All of these kind of concrete material acts are the forms of veneration that, paying to the image, we pay to the saint, the man or woman whose image this is. So as Catholics, we, without shame or without too much apology, we venerate images, and this is a kind of, as I'm suggesting, a very kind of real and a very concrete kind of act. Well, I would suggest that a broadcast Mass is an image. Yes, we would rather be at the Mass itself. Yes, we would rather be gathered around the altar as our Lord becomes present in the Eucharistic sacrifice. Yes, indeed, we would be there to consummate that sacrifice in receiving our Lord in Holy Communion. That is the kind of perfect moment of our Christian and our Catholic life. But being denied that, we can at least live through the Mass with devotion through its broadcast image. So the broadcast image becomes a kind of moving icon. When Mel Gibson made his movie, The Passion of the Christ, he said he wanted it to be a moving icon. And that is a kind of moving image that would bring the reality of Christ's passion and death before us with great kind of clarity and great kind of vividness. So I would suggest then that you watch the Mass, with great devotion. One of our parishioners said in a letter to the Fathers of the Oratory that when she watched our Mass, at the moment of the consecration, she knelt down in front of this image on her screen. And first I thought, well, why would you do that? But it really makes kind of perfect sense that you're paying, you're venerating the image of the Mass as a holy action, and the image of the Eucharist as it comes to be on our altar. And I think all that's kind of perfectly Catholic. So one day you'll converse with the saints in heaven. Today you must look at his or her image. One day we will return to the churches and the celebration of the Mass. But at the moment, all most of you have is the moving image, the moving icon of the Mass. Well, pay that moving image, that moving icon, pay it your devotion. Give it your attention, give it your heart, give it your bodily gestures, even in kneeling before it. And I'm sure that God will bless you richly for your devotion. So Holy Thursday then, tonight we can celebrate the Mass of our Lord's Supper. We recall the Eucharist, we recall the priesthood, but we also recall Christ's great deed of kind of love and service, his humble love and service when he washed his disciples' feet. And let this be also a lesson for us on this Holy Thursday. May somehow we learn to grow in charity for one another. Because in the words of the most beautiful hymn that we sing on Holy Thursday, Ubi caritas et amor, ibi Deus est, where charity and love are, there God himself is present.